What's going on, world? This is your girl, Marky Lemons-Ryhal, and let me tell you about the power of social media and also having a niche, or some of you might say niche. I was over on the almighty LinkedIn, and I realized that someone had looked at my profile and sent me a friend request. So instantly I'm like, well, how she know I'm talking about her, right? And that would be none other than our guest today, Liz Becker. Now, here's what's interesting. I had already interviewed a copyright expert on divorces, and I realized that it is a niche that I should look into based on my target audience. Just so happens I get a LinkedIn message, and we're both going to the Realtor Conference and Expo. And I say, well, why don't I stop by your booth and meet you? Because I have some questions. So, Liz, I want to thank you for being here on Social Selling Made Simple. You know what? This is very timely, right? We're coming out of a pandemic. The world as we knew it has changed. People have changed. We might not want to be with the person we've been with. I want you to tell people what you do and the organization in which you are the founder.
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I was very blessed to have the opportunity to meet you at the expo. Would have liked more time, right? It was crazy, but it was great to have that time. And yeah, I think it was really serendipitous in how we connected. And I'm happy to be on here and share with your listeners more insight into a niche, or as you said, niche, as many may say, that is really in demand in the real estate industry and profession. So I am the president and founder of the National Association of Divorce Professionals, which we founded about 7 years ago. And we did it to unite all professionals who touch on the divorce process, including legal, financial, mental health, and real estate professionals. And this was really important because I, for many years as a communication skills coach and trainer and focusing on divorcing clients, I noticed really early on in my practice that, I was there to help the parents communicate more effectively so that ultimately I can make a difference in the children's lives. And when I would start helping them, I noticed that, hey, one of the biggest problems that they were having is that all of these professionals that are so important to the process that they have to hire. You can't not hire a realtor when you're going through divorce, because there is going to be at least one sale or rental or move, if not 3 transactions that sometimes happen. And I realized that all of these professionals that were helping my clients were not communicating with each other. They didn't even know each other. There was no connection whatsoever. And there's so many aspects of the divorce process that if you just have a little nugget of information about not your profession, right, your decisions, your role, but what happens in the other aspects of the process will change the way you help your client and will make it easier for you. So I said, okay, there's no association or organization bringing all of these 4 industry professionals together for the purpose of learning, right? Connecting, communicating, collaborating, being able to build the right resources. So that's why we founded the NADP. And it's been amazing. We've got chapters all over the country. We've got national members because you can be part of the NADP without being part of a local chapter. We provide so much divorce-centered education and access to other professionals nationwide. Marky, you mentioned at the beginning, we're in a different time right now where, COVID did change us. The pandemic did change us. It changed how we do business. It changed how we connect, and it definitely changed the way we learn. So we are able to provide that in that way. So that was fantastic. I loved it. I loved the ability. I was very blessed to be able to go to different states, have meetings, meet all of these professionals that joined our association and our mission. But after about 2 years, I said, okay, this is fun. I love it. I love meeting people. I love giving them this platform. But my passion is communication skills. And one thing that I noticed really early on with the NADP is that we had tons of members that have been doing what they've been doing for 20, 30 years. I mean, a tremendous amount of time, whether they were real estate agents or brokers or in mortgage lenders or lawyers, but they were still having problems communicating effectively with their divorcing clients. both internally and externally, right? Whether it be handling them throughout the process or in their marketing, in their messaging, in so many different areas. And having been through it myself, it is not an easy process, and rightfully so. They are difficult clients because they have thousands and thousands of decisions to be made on a daily basis. And unless they're guided effectively, they're going to be stuck. And unless professionals know how to communicate effectively to them, they're going to be stuck, which makes it harder on the professional. It's this vicious cycle, Marky, right? So I said, okay, now I'm going to take my skills of what I know best, and that is to put together a proper training and program that will give these professionals in all four industries the ability to communicate effectively. How do you make sure that your output matches your client's input in so many different areas, in so many different aspects, so that the process by which you're helping them, whether it is one meeting, whether it is several meetings, whether it is the whole holistic service that you're providing, goes smoother. So I created a system to help with that. And then the second part is, what don't you know about every other aspect of the process that directly affects your service to them? It was amazing to me, Marky, and I don't know if you did it, or I think you saw it at the booth at the expo. We put together 6 questions. It was a divorce quiz, right? Just 6 basic.
That I failed.
Right?
I failed. Like, I was an absolute failure. When I got to question 3, I had them all wrong. And I'm like, I'm not doing this because, let me be clear, I didn't get nothing right. Okay.
But you weren't the only one. The majority didn't, which is amazing, right? It's like, if you don't understand the various processes out there that your divorcing clients have and options in the way that they're going to divorce, which will determine when and at what time and how they can sell their property and assets, how can you provide them that service effectively? There's going to be blocks throughout the process if you don't know that. And most realtors don't know that there are various different ways of for a client to go through divorce, as far as which process they choose, whether they have a lawyer or they don't have a lawyer, whether they're doing this, through mediation, whether they're already in litigation, whether it is a collaborative process. There's so many aspects to it. And it was interesting. It was definitely interesting to see that and see the feedback. And I think so many people took that and said, oh, wow, you just showed me what I don't know and what I need to know. And even on the slightest scale. So that's why I put together the CDS. And it's exciting to me because now I get the best of both worlds. I get to provide that, online and in-person platform to all these professionals to connect, but even more so, get them to take better care of their clients while managing a better experience for themselves as the professional. So they don't have to be fearful of like, oh my gosh, they're going through divorce. I don't want to touch that, right? Like, I don't want to touch that client. I know, realtors, there's only 2 professions that really touch and deal with both of the spouses. And that's real estate brokers or real estate agents and also mediators. The rest usually are only with one client, which makes it a little bit easier, right? So when you're dealing with both, I get it when, what's the professional like, oh my gosh, I don't want the headache. But what they're missing out is they're missing out on a really, really valuable market for them, especially now more than ever, because you know what? Divorce sales don't wait for the market to get any better. They don't wait for interest rates to lower because they have no choice. If they need to sell, they need to sell. If they need to buy and live somewhere, they need to buy and live somewhere. So this is a market that should not be avoided. And people shouldn't be fearful. And if they are already helping them, they should make sure they're doing it right, because it's, there's children involved here. It is the home. You are selling the most important, or you're helping them sell the most important asset in their life, right? That's pretty much in a nutshell. I think I summarized it all.
Okay, let me come back. So what I loved was your output must match your input.
Yes.
But a couple of things that I've never thought about, okay? The first thing is, it is a difficult process, but a realtor is only one of 2 people who will have to deal with both clients, which definitely makes it a difficult or more difficult process for any realtor, because essentially they're going between two people, right? And in order for this to have a successful outcome, that person must understand collaboration, because we're trying to create a win-win for both parties in order to come up with an effective plan to sell whatever real estate assets they have. So I never thought about it like that. And then also the different processes, whether you're going through mediation or litigation, or even those who try to do this themselves. So instantly, I felt like I really need to have more education, because you had me think about all the things that I normally don't think about. But I want to come back to this 6-question questionnaire. And I only want to discuss one of the questions because we want everyone to take the questionnaire, I guess, so that you can feel like I feel like you don't know anything about this process, right? So I'm married, right? I've been married now for 16 years. We are a blended family. Blended families are special families as far as I'm concerned. It takes a whole lot of additional effort when you are a blended family. But I want to go back to the very first question that I got wrong, which then also tells me that I'm on the right track. The question asked, where is the highest percentage of divorces? Is it the first marriage, the second marriage, and the third marriage? So instantly, based only on my own experience, I'm like, well, who would want to do this a second or a third time? So instantly I said, well, it'll be that second marriage. Of course, I was incorrect, right? With that being said, when I think about my sphere of influence, right, being dominated by females with that number one age bracket being 45 to 54, the correct answer was the third marriage. So now I'm thinking, well, why they didn't get it right? Are they difficult to deal with? Like, I made up a whole lot of stereotypes and assumptions, right, around that person, which is incorrect. So now I'm thinking fair housing violation, familiar status. And why would I think that because you've been married, right, and getting your third divorce, that you would be a difficult person? So I need to work on that stereotype. However, when I go back to that target audience of 45 to 54-year-old women, I'm making an assumption here that the person who's working or going through their third divorce would also be a little older, which then means that my target audience, right, would be an ideal client base, due to the fact that we're older, we likely own a home, we likely have investment properties. Some of us have a second home, even if we're doing Airbnb or VRBO on it, right? And I'm thinking, oh, this is like a 3, maybe 7 transactions all in one.
Yeah.
But we're the person who has to deal with both of the spouses. If we do not treat them fairly and equal in that process, we might not get any of the transactions. So that's what I came away with. Like, it made me feel like a dual agency situation.
Yeah.
Where I must represent all parties fairly and equally in that transaction. And clearly there's things that I can't tell. Oh, I can't tell either party or recommend to them to do. They have to make that decision on their own.
Absolutely.
Why did I just get dual agency out of this? Okay. So it feels like dual agency. And let me say this, most agents, whether they believe it or not, do not do a good job at dual agency. They don't understand that they have to show loyalty to both clients, but there are certain things that you don't recommend. Mm-hmm. So tell me about the CDS, the Certified Divorce Specialist.
I want to add something to what you said, which will in turn explain the CDS more. And we're going to go back to that output versus input, because I think that solves a lot. You uncovered a few things in what you just said in reference to the dual agency, in reference to dealing with both parties, in reference to understanding the market. And you started off with you yourself profiling a certain, way about someone, right? Which is honestly, in communications 101, is the biggest mistake we make as human beings, right? Mm-hmm. We basically create and process reality and create our assumptions of reality through many things, through our experiences, through our values, through our beliefs that are going on at a subconscious level. And so we're taking this information and we've just made some kind of representation, which is that profiling aspect to it. And our actions and our behaviors in response are going to be reflective of just that. So that gets us into a lot of trouble. And that's what causes our output not to match somebody else's input, because we're doing too much of our own processing reality rather than paying attention and gathering the information that we actually need to be closest to the actual reality. So let me explain something in that realm. One of the things that I teach, so neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, is the basis. I'm a trainer and practitioner. I had an NLP training school where I used to certify practitioners, both for personal and professional development for years. So I took NLP, which is pretty much a cognitive behavioral methodology that gives you the framework of thought process. It really helps in understanding how you're creating these beliefs in your mind and how to take control of those better and put them in strategize better in your communication. So what I've done in the training is I created 7 stages of the professional client session cycle. What does that mean? That means that there are 7 things that need to happen every time you have a conversation with each client. Not every client. This has to be done individually for each client, even if you're working with both. Okay. So now within this session in these stages, whether it's a point at which you're gathering information, whether it's the point at which your client needs to follow your guidance, you're expressing your guidance, whether it's the point at which they have to make decisions. At all of those stages, when you're dealing with divorcing clients, you're going to encounter obstacles and resistance. It's going to happen. It's up to you whether it's going to happen often or whether you're going to be able to overcome them. And that's exactly what I do is I give specific skills to overcome those obstacles. But in order to do that, you have to learn communication. So what does that mean? Well, I talk about this in every presentation because I think it's very valuable to understand. Communication and good communication, the recipe for it, there is a trifecta. And that trifecta is 3 things. It's, first of all, content. Your expertise. You got to know, I want to use French right now, but you got to know your you-know-what to be able to provide a good service. Okay. I can't give you that. You got to know your real estate, your real estate profession and everything that revolves around that. That's your content. And that involves your experience too. Then you would need to know structure. That's the second. That means at what point of a conversation are you going to share your expertise and that content? And then finally, the third thing is your technique. What technique are you using verbally and non-verbally to relay that information? So you need to have that trifecta of that content, the structure of when you're expressing the content, and the technique, how you're relaying. When you have that recipe and you have all of those going on at the same time, in your communication, then you will be able to match your output with their input. But you have to know what you're looking for. You have to know how you're doing things. In our training, I give a lot of self-awareness that all of a sudden people are like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was like that. I didn't realize that's how I was communicating, or I didn't realize that's how I was processing information, which was leading me to profile or to do certain things and maybe not respond the right way. So one of the things, I'll give you an example. So one of my students who is a realtor, she's out in Chicago. I think I used to do the online trainings for 3 days. I changed it to 2 days now so that we do part of it hybrid. But at that point, I think it was 3 days and she was coming on to her 3rd day. And she came on and she's like, I have to share something. Because in the morning I was do when we start the day, comments, questions, celebrations, all that kind of stuff. She said, Liz, I have to tell you something. I had an interview for a listing. She was brought in by the husband and it was a divorce situation. And the minute I walked in, I saw the wife's look and the way that she looked at me. And if it wouldn't have been for your training, I would have completely assumed that she hated my guts because she knew that the husband had called me in. I did not let that. I listened to what I learned in the training the past 2 days. I did what you said, and I ended up finding out, I gathered the information so well that I ended up realizing that that's not at all why she had that look on her face. she didn't want to get divorced and she definitely didn't want to sell the house. So it had nothing to do about me and that he brought me. And only because I did what you told, what you taught, and I was able to be objective and build amazing rapport with her, which is exactly what you're going to want if you're in a case where the other spouse is calling you in for the process. So it's things like that. That's what the CDS does for the first part of it, if I can best describe it. And then the second part that I told you before is that it's focusing on that content. You talk about being a double agent, or you talk about, it is so important for real estate agents and all real estate professionals to have an understanding of all the other professions involved. When may they come in or need to come in? When might you need to reach out to them for assistance? When should you be networking or connecting with them before you have a client so that you have the resources right then and there for your client? That makes a huge, it's a huge relief for divorcing clients, because you guys are the first ones called. You're like the first responders when it comes to divorce. In so many cases, you're the one that they're calling just to see the value of the house. Like, is it even worth getting divorced? Like, let me call, this one, or do you have a good realtor I can ask and speak to? So you hold a lot, I don't want to say power, but you have hold a lot of ability in helping them guide this process to make it so much easier by bringing them the resources and by you being the go-to person for the attorneys, for the accountants, for the others that are also being reached out to for help in the process. Does this make sense?
It does. And let me come back to where you stated NLP training, cognitive behavior. Yeah. Instantly, when you said that, because in my mind, I was thinking, how would one market themselves, right? Even though you want to specialize in divorces, there is definitely a thin line on how you would market yourself, because you want to be known for, look at this, resolving difficult situations, but not necessarily the divorce expert, because then when someone lists with you, consumers would start to assume that it is a divorce situation and that they can come and negotiate anything, right? Like it's a hardship situation. Yeah. So what I got was that I would become, through your training, a more aware realtor with better communication skills, and the way that one could market themselves, no matter what situation, is the communication skills and difficult situations. So now I'm thinking estate sales, even with the foreclosure short sales, right? That's a difficult situation. That as a realtor, I could talk to all of the pain points of a difficult situation, because I now have the training to navigate difficult situations better. Absolutely. So I took it to be more than what is being advertised. But I'm like, oh, I would position it as, I help you navigate through difficult situations, and I could list essentially what everyone viewed as a difficult situation, and divorces could be one of them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. There's so many things that you can do with it. It's totally up to the individual. I have, students that are doing it they don't even want to announce anything. They're doing it just because they want the skills. I have others that want to announce it. This is a niche. They want to be seen. And that's why I never did like certified divorce expert or anything, because you're not, nobody's a divorce expert, right? But as a divorce specialist, you're choosing to specialize in this niche, and divorcing clients should find you 100%, because you will have skills and tools and resources that other realtors do not. So it is definitely imperative that if you do want to pick that niche, we have all kinds of marketing materials after that we provide. One of them is we have a web page that you can give directly to prospective clients. It says, what is a CDS? It explains exactly what it is. What is the program you've been through that gives you the lessons that you need to be able to provide a better experience for them. So we do all of that. And one of the things that I wanted to address also when we talked about the input output thing, and we talked about being that you're dealing with two people, one thing that you will definitely learn is that in order to be a good communicator, you can't communicate one way and everybody's going to understand it. There's no way, listen, there are ways in advertising that you want to cover various aspects of your advertising so the masses are able to understand. But when you're dealing with a hands-on client, and two people, individuals in front of you, it doesn't mean that you don't have to have the same product or service, but you need to relay it differently to each one. It's just like when you have more than one kid. I mean, I only have one, but I coached kids and teens for years. So I know for a fact that I could be teaching the exact same thing, but I'm going to have to say it differently to each one, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. That's why people are like, but I don't understand. I have three kids and like one is so great and this one turned out this way and this one's doing that way. I'm like, yeah, most likely you communicated the same with all three and they all took it differently. So it absorbed with some of them, but it didn't absorb with some other ones. So yes, in order to be a good communicator, you have to change. So when you're talking to the wife, you're going to be speaking one way, or the husband, or both husbands, or both wives. Either way, you're with one spouse, you're talking one way. You're going to gather, you're going to learn, what do I need to gather from the way that they communicate so that I can now be flexible in my communication to them, saying the same exact thing, right? Like, this house I recommend needs to be listed at 500,000. You're going to have to say that to both parties. Are you going to say the same way? Well, you shouldn't. You should have gathered the right amount of information about how they communicate so that you can match them better. And again, have your output match your input, because if they're both, you get more cooperation from both parties. What does that do? That negates any kind of resistance. That makes the process go smoother rather than you stressing out of having to deal with both parties and going back and forth. And this one agrees, this one doesn't agree. There's so many aspects about communication that are part of that. It's not about how great you are as a professional. You can be fantastic at what you do. So these are the things that we cover as well. I'm going to be honest, the training is a 16-hour training, but Marky, I could have literally made it into a 2-week training. That's the amount of information that I give in it. Could be that, but I do know that professionals are busy, and that's why this is a certification that's supplementary to someone's profession, and that they're going to want to learn it in a shorter period of time, which is why I brought it down to 16 hours.
I'm going to say this, wow, because you've given me so much food for thought. And things like the whole dual agency, instantly that just came. I'm thinking, okay, the buyer, you represent the buyer and the seller, right? And here you are. And you're essentially, we're looking for collaboration, right? A win-win for all parties. And that all by itself takes a special person, right? But to have training to understand that you can go out now more confidently and convey this information to work through difficult situations. And I'm just thinking that it will apply to any and every industry. I need you.
Absolutely. And you know what, Marky, you also I have a tremendous amount of, realtors. Look, here's how it works. I created the NADP and the CDS for my personal mission of making a positive impact on the divorce process and the families, especially the children. However, I'm not ignorant to the fact that people want to make money and they want to build their businesses. So I have to find a balance that I was good with, that gives both, that gives the education, that gives them to manage spheres while also being able to grow their businesses while doing it right. Because I would much rather divorcing clients be hiring NADP members and CDS graduates than people that don't have that education. That's why we do help. We do help after with marketing. We do a lot of CDS grads then become NADP members after, because then they want to connect. They want to connect with the lawyers and connect with the others and say, hey, I'm a CDS. I know my stuff. And like, I got a good idea on everything. I'd love to be that go-to person for you, or just reach out to professionals in their community. It's one thing. I know a lot of real estate professionals that go in without any divorce education and will start like going into like family law attorneys, like, hey, look at me, I'm here. But if you don't have something that stands out, that's going to show them, hey, I've done my research, I've done some studies, I've gotten educated, I understand the different processes, I'm here and I can help your clients better. That's a much better thing. Or I always say the realtor should be going out saying, hey, I am a CDS, or, I'm part of the NAP CDS, and I need some good attorneys on my team so that I have to refer to when my client needs it. If they call me before, would you like to tell me more about your practice? That's it. Not even about like them, clearly, ultimately, if they start working together with these attorneys, they'll be part of their team. And that's one of the reasons we have the NADP as well. But these are all the things that there's so many aspects of this industry that you could grow your business, grow your resources, and at the same time, just do better for divorcing families, right? It's a win-win situation, the way that I see it.
There's a process that I send realtors through called an 8x8 strategy, strategically reaching out to 8 people by 8 a.m. based on their forward. And I personally don't like salesy people, right? So therefore, I'm not salesy. What I'm thinking that realtors can do with the 8x8 strategy is look at all of the different professionals and then follow them, get to know them, and then strategically reach out to them, even in the manner that you just said. Allow me to get to know more about you first. But it comes from listening. I would say one of my biggest pet peeves is that people will look at my bio, but they really don't read it. And then they'll inbox me, and I'm like, clearly, you took the time to send me a message, but you didn't even read like the 160 character bio. We don't want to be that person when we're reaching out to financial professionals and or attorneys, keeping in mind the value of their time. Always come from contribution first. Tell them the website so that they can come. And I know you have 3 different, I believe it is court. You have face to face, you have hybrid, and then you have on demand, right?
So I have the on demand is anytime they can go on. It's 16 hours. You do it in your own time. There is an assessment at the end. It's 50 questions. And you have to get 75% or higher. And you should, if you're following it, the manual has review questions at the end. You shouldn't have a problem with it. There is it has to be renewed every year, the designation, and every 2 years you have to submit 10 CE credits of any kind of education that's divorce centered. We need to make sure that you're still staying on top of your divorce education. So that is an important aspect to it. Then we have the hybrid, which I have one coming up now, December 8th and 9th. It's 2 days. So the communication skills portion of it, the part 1, I teach live online for 2 days from 9 till 4 Eastern time. And then the second part is about 5 hours of online learning, which is the legal, financial, mental health, and real estate implications. And we have other experts. We have attorneys that are teaching the legal aspect to it, and real estate agents. So, again, these are smaller nuggets. So you'll probably learn a few things about real estate itself that you didn't know. It's not going to make you that real estate divorce specialist, meaning everything that you know, everything about the real estate and divorce aspect. There's some other great trainings out there that do that as well. But this is going to give you a holistic understanding so that everybody else has an understanding about what you're doing too, and you understand the legal, financial, and mental health. And then we have the in-person, which is at the NAR offices in Clearwater in Pinellas County. And that is February 9th and 10th. So the hybrid is December 8th and 9th, and February 10th, 9th and 10th is the in-person. And that's 2 full days from it's 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. hardcore in-person training, but it's amazing. So they're all really, for me as a trainer, the reason why we did on-demand and hybrid was because of the pandemic. I was teaching only in person. So we all had to pivot, right? We all had to figure out a way that would make it approachable. And I love teaching. I don't know if I can reflect that in any other way, but I love teaching. I make my students get up and dance. I'm really adamant about it. So for me, the challenge was, how do I make this on demand that is going to be engaging and still keep people, there with me and understanding and learning. And I can honestly say from the feedback that I've gotten that everybody said that it's great. So either one works well. It all depends on your schedule.
Well, I just looked at my schedule and I realized that I can make it to Clearwater on February the 9th and 10th. So we can go and see what we can move around. Awesome. Because this is definitely something that I think that my target audience needs. And now after talking with you, I would love to work on my cognitive behavior. A little bit of what you said sounds like Landmark. So I'm a graduate of the Landmark Forum. And before I go back to the Landmark Forum again, because I need to dust that off, I'm like, okay, this might be a nice little bridge or a segue into it. Tell everyone the website and how they can sign up, since I'm telling everybody we need to be in Clearwater February the 9th and the 10th.
Definitely. They can go to www.thecdstraining.com. And we actually have a great offer special. My mother's a breast cancer survivor. So for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which I've now extended, what we did is we offered a $200 off any of the trainings. And we are actually donating $100 for each person that registers to the American Cancer Society. So people can also feel like they're doing good by joining. So that's on the site. If you go to the site, there's a pop-up with the code, but that code is CDS Making Strides.
CDS Making Strides.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much. Look, let me go back and look, get my flight and everything else down to Clearwater, because yes, I need this. And look, in Chicago in the month of February, it is freezing cold. Liz, I want to thank you for being here today, for providing, so much valuable information that you have me over here with a long to-do list. And I can definitely see how earning your designation will change my life. And let me say what you just said that really stood out. 10 hours of divorce education in order to maintain it, because you understand the rules and regulations are going to change. So I love the fact that it's not something you can just get and keep. You have to continue to learn more just in that arena. So thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Marky. I appreciate you.
Everyone, I want to see you down in Clearwater. All right now.